everybody, welcome back to another episode of Just in Time, the series where I bring you just a little bit of information just in time for you to put it on your specification. This week we're doing a special two-part series on Tunable White classroom style. So this week, we're going to focus on what exactly is Tunable White and why do we use it? Why do we want to use it? And also, what are the challenges we face when utilizing this technology? And then in the second part of the series, I'm going to introduce to you what could be the perfect solution to identifying those challenges with a new product that was identified in the IES 2020 special report as an advancement in LED technology. So listen, Tunable White's not new. It's been around a little while now, but I think it's important to break down a few misconceptions and to kind of separate some different areas that we've maybe heard about Tunable White being discussed. So Tunable White comes up in discussions on circadian lighting. It comes up in Well V2, which has a circadian lighting element, and then also human-centric lighting, which is a more broad-based approach to the same concept. So let's focus one on Well V2 and their circadian lighting element. So that's an optimization that can be put on top of the preconditions to meet those point requirements, and they're judging it based on what's called equivalent melanopic lux. Now that level is a little different. Now in lighting, we're used to putting out foot candles in order to determine the appropriate amount of light in a space, and that is on the horizontal plane. But with EML, we are looking at the vertical plane. So as I'm looking forward, sitting at my desk, the light level at the level of my eye on that vertical plane, that's where I need to hit that measurement, and it's in a specific window of time that they're looking to qualify that, and that does get verified in the field. So let's talk about how that happens. Now, I can hit that level with any color temperature in the spectrum. It just takes a different intensity at different color temperatures in order to achieve that goal. So with a tunable standpoint, I can have a lower power density at a cooler color temperature than I would if I was trying to do that with a static or with a warmer color temperature. It's going to take me more intensity, like I said. So that's where Tunable White comes into play there. It's not specifically called out as a need to achieve that, but that's why it gets brought up, is because it's easier to achieve it at that level. Now, in terms of circadian lighting and what we're going for with circadian entrainment, that EML level is based on the fact that our eyes are receiving information from light, and that's whether to suppress or enhance melatonin in our body system. Now, the receptors in our eyes that are triggering that are intrinsic photoreceptive retinoganglion cells. And I'm only going to say that once and probably get it right only that one time. So there you go. But those cells are the ones that are controlling those melatonin levels that are being released into our body. And there is some science on one end that says we need to hit a very specific nanometer wavelength within the spectral distribution in order to have that actual response. And that's generally accepted between like a 470 to 485 nanometer wavelength range. But there's also other science that says, given the level in which our eye receives it and the intensity in which we receive it, that EML level can give us a similar response. So both sciences working in coordination with each other, but that's the difference between the two. And then human-centric lighting, it is exactly what it says, right? We are putting a human at the center of the design and just what makes us feel more comfortable in a space, and Tunable White can achieve that as well. So there's that breakdown. Now let's move forward to some of the challenges in Tunable White. So the most common way that Tunable White lighting is achieved is by having two LED diodes in the same chipset. One at a cool color value, one at a warm color value. And the way we achieve any level in between is by adjusting the intensity between those two values. So when we place those two values on a black body curve, let's just take, for instance, a 2700 Kelvin to a 6500 Kelvin. You can see when I go to change the intensity between these, I'm on this straight line, which is just under that black body curve. So that is a Hue error that happens when we utilize tunable white. That hue error is sometimes expressed in this value, the DUV, which is a deviation, an expression of the deviation rate. So that tells you how far off that curve is. Typically, anytime we're below that black body curve, we're going to be in that pinky kind of range. If we were above the black body curve, we're going to be in that kind of greenish range. Now, I am not going to go down the rabbit hole of binning right now, which would overcomplicate this. So we're going to keep it simple and just assume that our high and low values are right smack on that black body curve. So what if some manufacturers have done to try to combat this? Well, they shortened the line between the 2 points. So instead of having a long way to go between 2700 or 6500 Kelvin, maybe they shorten that up. So let's say they did only 3000 Kelvin to 4000 Kelvin, which obviously, and this is a very crude drawing, we can probably throw up a nice fancy graphic showing something a little bit better here, but 3000 Kelvin to 4000 Kelvin, it doesn't matter how you shorten your range or value, I'm still going to have a deviation that's going to fall below the curve because it's a straight line between those 2 points. It'll make it a little better, a little less perceptible to a greater portion of the population, but it's still going to be there. It's still going to be present. Another way in which other manufacturers are trying to combat this is by adding more chipsets, right? Now, all of a sudden we have to add in our red, our greens, our blues, and ambers. Now we've got 3, 4, 5 diodes on this. It's no longer tunable white. Now it's full tunable color. All right, stepping back, tunable white. So we've got the hue error. That's number one. Let's look at the next challenge. So the next big challenge that we talk about with tunable white is control. So our basic controls that we usually choose from are 0 to 10 volt, DMX, or DALI. Let's look at each one of those individually. So first, let's look at 0 to 10 volt. Now, in my 0 to 10 volt scenario, I've got 2 controllers on the wall. Each one is wired to an individual power supply, and that's where I'm getting my line voltage from. Now, when I control each one of these, I'm basically only controlling the intensity of each color temperature, which is not intuitive. When you walk into a room, if you have a tunable white scenario and you want to change that, you're not trying to think to yourself, oh, I need to add a little warmth here, I need to take a little cool out. You just want to walk over to a control and say warmer, cooler, and then if you don't like the brightness, you want to change the intensity on a separate controller. You don't want to be mixing those intensities to try to also get your control, to also get the blend you want, and then figure out the intensity and keep them in proportion to each other. It just doesn't work that way. There are some manufacturers that have smarter driver systems like the Lutron T series that can help clean this up in a 0 to 10 volt scenario and give you a control interface that acts more like we expect. So I still have 2 0 to 10 volt controls, but this one's going to control it as CCT, this one's going to control it as intensity the way I want it to, but the programming and the back end stuff is going to happen the same way as normal. There is still a cool driver and a warm driver, just the interface in between is taking out the brain power for me. Now let's look at DMX. Now with the DMX scenario, we're a little bit different. So here we typically have a controller that is going to look and feel in that intuitive way. So we have our CCT values. I've got a warm and a cool that I can transition between. I can adjust my intensity. And what's happening on the backside is DMX stands for Digital Multiplex Signal. This is a theatrical standard. It's 512, USITT 512, because it's 512 channels of control, but this is not intelligent control. This is just sending zeros and ones down a line and nothing is really coming back. There's no feedback loop saying error or anything else to it. So it's just kind of a one-way street when it comes to DMX. Now my power supply driver combo is what's going into this. So the driver is what is doing all the computation for me, and I can have that programmed into a couple different ways. So I've got this set to an address of 001. Channel 1 is going to be controlling a blue leg, channel 2 is going to be controlling a cool leg, and then when I go to function that with intensity, it's controlling channel 1 and 2 both together. So it's driving both of them as though they're subs, and that's the primary. So if I have a series of luminaires and I want to control each one independently, I just need to address them independently. So 01, 03, 05, 07, 09, and you can see I'm skipping by 2s because each luminaire is taking up 2 channels. I could also group luminaires and say all 3 of these are all under channel 001. So that's with DMX. Now let's jump over to DALI. Now DALI, which stands for a Digital Addressable Lighting Interface, is not that dissimilar from DMX. There are loads of reasons why it is better than DMX in terms of its installation, wiring, accessibility, but I'll let the pros over at More Lights, who are huge DALI fans, get into the weeds on that one. This is just to say that it is addressable, but it is a bi-directional protocol. There's a way to make DMX a bi-directional protocol, but we're just adding another layer onto that control system. So think of DALI as a more intelligent feature, and it has a higher functionality than DMX in this realm. So all of this is to say that the 2 biggest challenges we come up against when trying to deploy a tunable white technology into a space is hue error and cost with the control package. So what if there was a more perfect solution that would allow you to overcome these challenges in an easier fashion? Well, wouldn't you like to know? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next episode where I show you exactly what that possible solution could be. Thanks for joining. We'll see you again.